What's tea, y'all? I know some of you are out there right now having a hard time, having problems in your relationships, having trouble with life. Or maybe you're on social media swiping and swiping, thinking, why can't that be me? Why can't I do that? Well, I'm here to let you know that you can. This is Create Your Own Story with Terrell Garnett, where we not only help you create your own story, but we let you tell yours too. Let's get into it, y'all. Tell the people who you are.
Nice. All right, what's up, guys? This is Con Killion. I am originally from Detroit, but I recently moved maybe about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago to the East Coast, and I'm a recording artist, R&B, team R&B all day, and I feel like my life goal is just to be able to bring just different emotions out of people through my music and through my stories. I'm a storyteller, and if you haven't checked me out, make sure y'all check me out. Got music everywhere.
Good. So the question that I've been asking everyone, and I feel like it's something that we all always need to talk about in regards to everything that happened in 2020. So with everything that happened in 2020, how has it changed you, molded you, with the social injustice, with the
hmm
presidency, as well as COVID? How has that like defined you now as a person?
Man, I feel like the way 2020 went, if you weren't changed in any way at all, I don't know where you was at. Like I think, like you said, the social injustice, man, from just being in quarantine and being able to really sit with yourself and you're actually forced to sit with yourself. For me personally, that was one of the hardest things to deal with. I am a busybody. Like I have to be moving around. I'm a Sagittarius. We like adventure, doing stuff, constantly moving. And this was the first time like life told me like sit down. Like and with that, I learned that, I didn't have everything all together like I thought. I'm a type of person that kind of likes to self-analyze a lot and try to grow mentally and spiritually and stuff like that. But then I realized like, boy, you got some work to do. Like, I learned that I have this need to be around people or to be in a relationship. Like that was a big one for me, just coming out of one and then not realizing like, yeah, you got all these small situationships and now you can't be in these situationships because we got a whole ass virus or going around and it's literally not safe to do that. So uh I learned that, that there's definitely some work that needs to be done internally as far as like why that is. Why do you feel like you have to be in a situationship or whatever, a relationship, to be happy? And then also with the social injustice, bro, it's like I also was forced to realize like how messed up things are in America. Like we kind of get comfortable, and I try not to complain too much because we are in better situations than other countries with people that look like us. Like we are in a more, I guess, free environment, if you want to call it that. But there's a lot of stuff that still is the same as it was with our grandparents. And like the stuff that they face is just like, Granny, I get you. Like I see what you was talking. I know what you went through. Now it's not me just reading in the book or looking at a documentary, in school in class. Like I am facing it right now, and it just shows us that it was really hitting for a long time. And all,
Not to cut you off, but you know what I've
no, you
noticed
good.
too, even with you speaking of grandparents, like I've noticed like with my personal grandparents, it's kind of like they're like numb to the situation. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, they're like, oh, it's just, like it's like nothing to them. And we're like, not crying, but like we're like, like, dang, this is so serious. And they're just like, it was way worse
facts,
back then. Like, this is nothing. And they're just numb
facts,
to it.
bro.
Like, it's just another day.
I was raised by my great aunt. And when I would talk to her about certain stuff, she'd be like, "Yeah, she washing the dishes or she mind her own business." I'm like, "Did you watch or hear about what happened in the news?" Like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That's all you got to say? Like, just yeah." like we over here going through it.
Yeah, I think that the difference between now and then is social media. We're able to see racism from people that we like coming into now the 2000s and everything. We black people are so they use us they, for their gain in a sense.
Right.
Um, and because of that, we see us on sports or music, the charts and everything, that we failed sometimes to realize that we're just a pawn in a sense. And with
Absolutely.
social media, it's actually put it on the forefront that there's people out here that still just don't get it, or they don't care, or they're just racist.
Yeah, and what's crazier too is like for those who didn't think they were racist, they finding out like maybe I'm a little more racist than I thought. Like when they're seeing us have these conversations, whether it's a Facebook status, I don't know what it was about Facebook, but Facebook brought out all the races. Like people that I've been going to school with, because I went to a predominantly white school, and I'm like, oh, you thinking like that? Like you don't find a problem with what just happened, but you're calling yourself not racist and you're an ally. You can't be an ally if you see a problem or you're trying to tell us how we should react to these problems that we're facing in America. That's a problem. Like, and they don't want to hear. Some people don't want to hear that, and it's unfortunate. And for me, I ain't got time to be arguing, so I'm just gonna unfollow, block, and keep it moving. But it does put a strain on your mental health. Like, and I never thought I'd be that guy, but it happened. It hit me, and my biggest thing that happened to me was I was feeling guilty for not being a part of the protest. Cause I'm like, look, I gotta be indoors. This virus is real. And I'm watching people protest and go through all of this. I'm like, man, I should be out there. But I'm like, you know what? I'm a recording artist. I can stand up for the injustice and be a part of the movement in other ways. But it was a moment in and during that time, I was like, you know what? You got to do it, bro. And I did. I went to one protest. I even vlogged it on YouTube with Life with Con, and it was an amazing experience. But I was feeling real guilty, really guilty, feeling like I just wasn't doing enough.
I personally didn't protest at all. Like I posted a lot of stuff on social media, but I didn't protest. I wasn't one COVID. And then
Facts.
two, it
Yeah.
was just like I'm not going to put myself in danger just because of like in more danger and cause a big of a problem.
Yeah.
And one of the protests I was in my neighborhood or my area, there was this guy that was in a truck and like ran over some people. And I'm like, see,
Oh
like this,
man.
like it was on purpose, and the cops just let him go, like nothing. So it's really sad. I mean, I even just yesterday, that what you were saying about like you never realize, how people are certain races. I have someone that I mentor, this kid, and yesterday he
Mm.
posted on Instagram that he doesn't see the problem with saying the N word, and he's Hispanic,
Ooh.
and he's I'm gonna say it, and I'm just like, it
Ooh.
was like 3 o'clock in the morning when I seen that, and I was like, oh no, 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 I got time today. And we had like this big talk, and he just wasn't getting it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if like I don't know how to make you see that you shouldn't use the word. Like you just don't
You
get
know.
it.
The problem, what I learned was at this point in your life, if you aren't doing the work to find out why people of color are telling you specifically why certain things that you're doing is problematic, if you can't figure that out by YouTubing, Googling, asking around you, and having an open mind, there's nothing that I can say. And so it's like for me, I personally, I can't entertain it because then I start noticing I get angry and it's affecting me. Like it lingers on, because it's like an unresolved energy. Like I'm trying to get you to understand and you just refuse to understand. And then I could be like, all right, forget you. You can't, or I'm done with you. But really, is that energy done though? That is lingering on.
Amanda Seales had posted something, and she was saying that we as Black people shouldn't be teaching other races about certain things
Ah,
because everything is so evident. So it's their choice to be ignorant. Basically, they want to
facts.
not know,
Yeah. And that's
and
the thing. And it's
yeah, it's
unfortunate.
sad.
Yeah.
Well, going back to what you said in regards to um, your love life, and you said something that you basically had to cope with not being in a relationship, and you were struggling on why why do you need somebody in a sense.
Yeah.
What did you come up with?
Um, I'm still going through that. I'm still figuring that out completely. But one thing I do know for sure is just this need for um, not necessarily attention, but something solid. Like I'm big on consistency, and especially coming from foster care, uh, and then being adopted by your great aunt, not your aunt or your grandma, but your great aunt. Taking in, and I had an amazing childhood thanks to her. Like God really blessed me when she came into my life. But you have two parents who literally are just not there. You know what I'm saying? And then you have the grandmother, the mother of one of your parents, around the corner from you, and you don't have a relationship with her either. So I constantly was shown that people don't last in my life. And so when I got into these relationships, I'm realizing like, oh, you're like, whether it's a good one or not, you need that to feel like, okay, I'm cool, I'm good enough. Like, I'm worthy of this type of love or whatever the case may be. And I was like, nah, man, like I got to get past that because I know the past is a thing and I know it affects us, but you got to move forward and resolve that because I know that's not the truth now. Like what was holding me back during those times when I was growing up, I don't want that to affect me anymore,
So with everything that you're saying, it seems as if you stayed or you want relationships to basically you felt to fill the void in a sense that you missed when you were a child.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
in
facts.
regards to your project, I'm gonna play one of the songs right now.
Awesome.
I'm gonna play Potential.
I don't like starting from the beginning. I got issues with I hate endings, but you've been too many. How'd I go from being committed and forgiving to wanting my distance and no longer feeling comfortable? All of these warning signs tell me to go. You see the caution tape, don't come too close. But I know what I'm feeling. I can't make decisions. I hate that I'm not in control. Show me it's worth it to you, cause your words not enough. I don't wanna fall back in the cycle that I know. Diamond in my rough, worth more than potential. Show me it's worth it to you, cause your words not enough. I don't wanna fall back in the cycle that I know. Diamond in my rough, worth more than potential.
Love that record.
Yeah.
But
Thank
my
you.
question with that is, so there's potential. I feel like everybody that goes into any relationship, we see the potential out of somebody. But even with
Yeah.
that potential, sometimes it's just potential. And then you notice, as the album title, Red Flags. How do you, when you first meet someone, how do you realize if it's something that they're going to be able to live up to, that you're willing to deal with, even though they haven't reached that? And you notice those red flags. What are the pros and cons that you determine if you're going to stay in this relationship or not?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. For me personally, one, I have to see like, okay, I have to also tell myself this, like, no one's perfect, including myself. So as you can see throughout the project, I also discovered I have my own red flags. So with that, I have to be lenient and be like, okay, with this particular red flag, is it something I can handle for the rest of my life? Because the way I look at it is this: the person that you're meeting on the first day, the first month, or whomever you're with, if they decide to not change, you have to be okay with that. And if I feel like I can't stay with someone, and if this girl's like having all these problems, and I'm just like, you know what? I think I can work on her with this. I shouldn't be in that situation because that means that I'm not 100% happy with her in that moment. And the likelihood of her changing is low. I feel like people don't really change too much. We upgrade. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, and there's always a likelihood that those habits or those red flags can come right back. So are you going to be able to stay with that person throughout that or not? And we all got our own, I guess I would say, like limits or things that kind of like is our breaking point. So you got to really know yourself first. And if you don't know yourself, you really wouldn't know, what you can handle or not.
So with some of the relationships or situations that you've been in, you've like with the song Red Flag, you said that you stayed in a situation even though you noticed those red flags. What was the determining factor of why you stayed as long as you did?
Literally just the length of time that I committed to her, and feeling like, do I really want to do this all over again? Learn another person all over again from scratch and have to go through the same bull crap all over again. And you look at it in that way, it's so negative. It's like, nah, I can't do that. I'd rather just stick with her, cussing me out or doing this or doing that in this moment. And I'll just deal with it. Just, let it go in one ear and out the other. And then also being comfortable. It's like you kind of almost subconsciously adjust to the bull crap, like the toxic stuff. You don't realize it, but you kind of make excuses for it. And it's like, no, that's problematic. It's time to go. So I think I did that. I got really comfortable, made excuses for the actions, and then I just didn't want to start all over again,
And have you, in any of your relationships, have you noticed these red flags? Have you tried? Because I mean, I don't know if you listened to, if I said it on my second podcast, it's called Green Flags, that sometimes we ignore things that are good and we only look at the bad. Yeah. So, but with that, even though you see red flags, there's always ways that you can turn those red flags into green flags by working with the person. But I feel that sometimes, like you said, we get comfortable and we don't want to do the work. Yeah. So has there been a time for you where you're able to change the narrative of the relationship?
I did. But the problem was that I noticed that I was attracting women that were attracted to the fact that I could do that. And that was the problem. The results came and I'm noticing all these differences. But then I also realized when I really peeled back, when the problems were still like coming, I was like, oh, you never wanted to change to begin with. So it starts off, I think, whether it's a red flag or not, you have to see if that person genuinely wants to change and be a better person, not change themselves completely, but like change the things that they can recognize is problematic. I can work with that. Anybody can work with that. There's room for growth because you genuinely, without me telling you anything, want to change. So that's what I look for.
Makes sense. I think that a lot of times we find when we get into relationships or we go into things that we see a potential, we see that this person can be this, and that may not just be them. And what you see is literally what you get. And we think about, because they're pretty or they look good or whatever the case is, that we can be able to change them or they'll grow into somebody that they just never going to be because that's not on their life school, course. And then there's even the flip side of things when people do grow or upgrade, change, whatever you want to call it, and everything's perfect, but you guys don't grow and change together.
Man, that's a whole nother that's another topic, bro. Woo.
So, and then you see like, this person's changing, and it's just like, well, you gotta be able to let them grow. Like I always tell people when people get together at their early 20s and stuff, I'm like, that's cool now. You guys are getting married now, but the person that you are at 20 is not going to be the person you're at 27. And I know for a fact I've been there. So, and it's just, and then they see, and I never try to like harp on anybody, because when you think about our grandparents, like most of them got married super young and they were together and they lasted. But at that same time, what did they have to put up with? Usually the man was out here, your grandfather's doing all his dirt, and your grandma just put up with it and raised the kids.
But that's the thing though, like I remember like having that same thing, like, so-and-so, they've been together since they were 16, they 50 something now and all that. But then you realize like, but it was a different time back then. Like during that time, they didn't know anything about self-care, mental health, putting yourself first, boundaries. They didn't know nothing about that. Wasn't really prominent. No one was teaching them that. So when we learned that information and we had those tools, now I was like, wait, so I don't have to put up with this stuff? Like a lot of these couples, they'll be together for so long, but you realize they're not happy. Don't sleep in the same bed. Or even if it's not sleeping in the same bed, they just don't like each other. But they doing it for whatever reason, or because back then society showed you if you weren't married, you were less than, almost in a sense, in a weird way,
No, I totally agree. And you said boundaries. What are some of the boundaries that you set up when you first get into a relationship? Things that they're not breaking,
At
like
this
deal
point-
breakers in a sense, something that you're going to put in there?
For me now, and I feel like sometimes I do still have to monitor it. My biggest thing is just like, are you supportive of what I'm doing first? Like, if you have a problem with my career choice and what it comes with, that's a huge like deal breaker for me. And because I've been in situations where literally the girl would just be like, so how long is this gonna go for? Like, who is this person that you're in the studio and doing all of that early within a few weeks, a month? I'm like, yo, like, I barely know your middle name, and you worried about who I'm in the studio with, or so that's a huge deal breaker for me. And also, honestly, someone who isn't open minded, like, and that's in all ways, whether it's trying new foods, going different places, also parenting. Like, I do want kids in the future, so that's a huge way to know somebody. Like, what is your parenting style? How do you view this? How do you view that? Because a lot of couples break up or have issues because of how they handle their kids together, you know. And I'm not scared to ask those questions straight off the bat, like early, like not on the first date, but really early on, like, what is your view on this, And you even got to talk about like religion too, spirituality, things like that. I'm a very spiritual person, grew up and was raised in the Baptist church, but I feel like I've upgraded in a lot of ways spiritually from what I was groomed to be like early on. And that's a huge, thing for me.
That's good. So you said you grew up in the church, not to switch gears a little bit, but I always ask this question to people because I always just want to pick their brains on if so. K Michelle has this song called 10 Minutes with God. So my question is, if you had 10 minutes with God, what would be the one question you would ask him?
Oh, this is easy. Are you happy and pleased with how I'm representing you? Because I feel like my entire life is just a representation of a version of him. Not the only version, but a version of him. And I really put a lot of emphasis on that throughout my career and just life. So I want to know, is he proud of me? And if not, what could I do to be better?
That's an amazing question. I know this past year, I want to say it was in March, I was going through a struggle, an internal struggle. I think most of my life, I'm always tending towards other people and making sure everybody else is okay. But I knew at the top of the year that I needed to focus on myself. And I felt like just all 2020 was basically meant for people to just focus on themselves. But with that, I remember like just knowing that I needed to go to God or just have him more present in my life. And it was a struggle though. Not that I was ever doing anything bad. Like I rarely drink. I've never smoked anything, but in general, I just felt like I needed to have him more present in my life. And I was struggling with that. And I remember hearing this song by the Walls group called Satisfied. And you're right. And it's funny because like I'm from California, but I always say that I'm from Houston, and I've heard about the Walls Group for a few years, and I just never listened to them. And I listen, like my first favorite music is gospel music, so I never listened to them though. And I was just like, oh, okay, let me just listen to them. So I listened. I was like, oh, they're actually good, like And then someone's like, oh, they're from Houston, and I'm like, what? I was like, no wonder I like them. But with the song Satisfied, like it put my life into perspective, like. Sometimes we always say like we tend to think like, oh, is God going to be happy with this, or is he going to be pleased with this, and it really just put that in perspective. Like, am I satisfied with what God's done in my life? Yeah, but is he actually satisfied with what I've done in my life? And after putting that into perspective, after hearing that song, I literally just changed the way that I view things and just the rest of my 2020. Like, yeah, we've gone through hard things, but it's not about what we go through, but how we handle what we go through.
Absolutely. And what you do with it.
Exactly. So that's amazing that's your question. But let me play another one of your songs. One of my favorites. I'm gonna go with Heavy.
Hey, nice.
Turns out to be the one that you knew, but I never really knew. But I
Conversations with my ex made a whole lot of shit clearer. I wasn't ready for a real one. Back then I was different. Now that you've been in my head, fucked around and met a new me. Turns out to be the one that you knew, but I never really knew me. Blame it on me. I know that I can never be the gun, cause you got all the ammunition. Don't wait on me. I know you've been losing patience by the way that I communicate. I know it. I know it. When you cry a river, I just want my pen and you know it. I know it. Your heart is like a feather. I was heavy-handed and I know it. I know it. I know it.
I have two questions that I want, because I want to break down the song a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a line in the song that said, I thought I was a gun, but you were the ammunition, or you had the ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
So throughout that relationship, I thought that I was like, the guy's in control, or you're the head, of this union, I guess. And I realized like I am nothing without you, in a sense. Like, in my opinion, women hold more power than we give them credit for. And in that moment, I had to acknowledge that and let her know, like, yes, you were a mess. And I wasn't innocent either, but you were more powerful than I gave credit. And that was my way of kind of almost just apologizing for not being better at communicating that during that time.
That's amazing. And then there's another line that you said, your heart was like a feather and I was heavy-handed.
Yeah.
So elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, so typically this girl would be considered or categorized as what you would say is like toxic and crazy, over the top, emotionally damaged, which, in a sense, depending on which lens you're looking at her at, that would be true. But she was a result of her past that I knew about. And so with me knowing that she had a rough upbringing, I should have been more sensitive to that. And when I would see that she was triggered by certain things and acted out in certain ways, instead of me being like, you need to change, this is wrong, I should have been a little bit more consoling and trying to figure out ways to get her through it. And I wasn't. And I felt really bad about that. And what made me even write this song is because I linked up with her after years of us being broken up. And we always kind of kept in contact, just social media. You double tap something, you may respond to a story, something like that. But I decided to link up with her one summer. I was like, yo, we should talk. She, what I want to talk about. We linked up, and I apologized for all the stuff that I could have done better, which is crazy because in hindsight, everyone who knew about the situation and between us, we knew that she was the reason we broke up. But I apologized because I had some growing to do. And I felt like I could have done better in making sure that at least this transition was a little better and not so rough. Yeah.
Very mature of you. Very mature. I know one of my cousins, she's going through something similar. They're not breaking up. I don't want to speak that over their lives. But we were talking yesterday and I was just like, well, it sounds like, because they moved in together, it sounds like you guys moved in too early. Like you guys didn't know each other well enough. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is how do you know when to make it official?
You know what? I still haven't figured that out because it's very situational. It depends on the person. It all depends on where you're at in your life, and not just mentally, just in all different ways. Like, that's something that I would have to really work on because I was raised as a Baptist and they say you ain't moving in until you're married. You know what I'm saying? And I had to it's so funny how the stuff that you learned growing up, I feel like a lot of us, especially millennials, we had to kind of we had to unlearn some things. And it's hard sometimes to face okay, I know that I should be doing this, but I still got that little voice in my head, that pastor, that auntie, that grandma, that mama telling you nah, that ain't it. So I'm still working through that. It's going to require me to really trust 100%. the person I'm with, I would have to really trust her to do that.
I mean, that totally makes sense. I think that a lot of times we don't. Things are just easier sometimes in certain things. So, or I noticed that a lot of relationships, no one ever asks the other person out. They just been talking for so long that they just go together. Now they don't even have an anniversary date, and it's like, well, then they do something wrong. It's like, well, I never asked you out anyways, or you never asked me out. So, and it gets complicated. And I feel like that's because of how society is today. And just, let me say this correctly, because I don't want nobody bashing me, but I feel that, yeah, I feel that sometimes women want something so bad that they're willing to deal with whatever the man puts in front of them. And there's even, I know some women, and they're gonna know I'm talking about them right now. But some girls are okay with the dude cheating in a sense. Not necessarily, let me rephrase that. They're not okay with the dude cheating, but it's not a deal breaker for them. And that goes to show that, like, well, what's gone on in your life that would allow you to be okay? And then with that, now there's the term that all men are evil, all men are cheaters and all, which isn't the case. And I always like to say, just because this guy cheated on you or this girl cheated on you doesn't mean they're going to cheat on the next person. Maybe it was something about this next person that causes them not to cheat, or maybe they've grown from the relationship that they were in with you. Not to say that there's anything wrong with you, but it just, it turns out that way sometimes.
But my thing is too, even with that, is like, in order for it to be considered cheating, y'all got to talk about what is cheating in the beginning. Like, we don't do that stuff, because it's like, we just kind of like, oh, we in it now, I'm in love, and you doing all the stuff that you do when you're in love. But it's like, let's talk about who we are, why we are, and what we want and don't want. So if I'm in a relationship and I'm like, you know what, I don't think double tapping on some few pictures is cheating, or, you know, I don't think if you hanging around your best friend and that's a male, it's cheating, and it's just y'all two. Or maybe I do. Y'all have to have specific conversations on what y'all want and don't want. Then you stuck in a situation where, like you said, a girl, a guy could be like, you know what, you know, that's not a deal breaker for me. When it's really you just adjusting because you didn't communicate properly in the beginning, and you know that what it was that you wanted or did not want. And so you just kind of get stuck.
Have you ever heard of the term emotional intelligence?
Yes.
So I feel that a lot of times people may be wanting a relationship, but they don't have the emotional intelligence to actually be in a relationship. So, and I feel like things that we may think is little, like a double tap on a picture, somebody else may think is like everything. And it goes to show that, okay, well, what are your insecurities? What can I do to reassure you that I'm not cheating or I'm not doing anything wrong? Then there comes the whole trust thing. I've proven to you all this time. It just reminds me of, I always relate everything to a song, but it reminds me of Beyonce's song, Yes, where every time she's done everything right, but the one time you do something that I don't like, then it's basically all hell. And a lot of times I think that when we get into relationships, we don't know each other well enough to know what's right, what's wrong. And that goes to show that if I don't know you well enough, then why am I in this relationship? And then on the flip side, there's people that have the mentality that think, unless I'm married, I'm single, even if they're in a relationship.
Yo, that's wild to me. That's some new stuff right there. I feel like that's lazy. I feel like it gives people an excuse to not be responsible and decent human beings. Like, no, if you're and I'm guilty of this, I will say this. If you know that it's just dating, I feel like even as fellas, we have to monitor how, especially with like how we approach women in a way to where they may think that they're in a relationship with you, because there's boundaries in that too. Like, you know, if you're dating and get to know them, you can't be pulling out all your tricks. You can't be showing everything and anything to her and saying all the words. Like, bro, you got to dial something back. And I used to do it no matter what. Like, oh, first date, I'm going ham. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, but wait, hold on. You catching feelings? Like, yo, we just dating. That's toxic.
Yeah, it is. And it's not even that. It's like when you show basically all your cards, or in a sense, like everything that you're capable of up front, now it gives them the opportunity to expect that from you all the time. So then now I remember I had a friend that she used to date this guy, and he was like all lovey-dovey and everything. And then once she noticed, like once they like started dating, he just stopped doing everything. And he was straight up, I respect him, because she asked him like, why don't you do this stuff anymore? And he was like, well, that's when I was trying to get you, but now that I got you, I don't gotta do that no more.
That's it. But you know what's crazy? I was having this conversation with one of my friends, and I'm like, as men, it's unfortunate. Actually, women get this too. We get a template on what dating is and what you should do. No one's teaching us that it is not the same. Like, well, guys, like every girl don't like roses. I had to learn that out. Every girl don't want some new shoes or want to go to a fancy restaurant. Some chicks want to go to In-N-Out and just be with you, looking at the stars and stuff like that. And it was hard for me to realize that. And I think we get told like, this is how you date. And if you don't do that, then you're not worthy. You're not a great man. You're not a great woman. And I think that's the problem. We have to strip that and realize, cater to the person that you're with. Pay attention to the little details that make them happy, what they respond to without them telling you. And that's the way to go. And the problem is with that situation you just listed, and I've been there too, is that you're doing something that's naturally not what you want to do or what you would do in that situation. I think we should start off the way that we know we'll always be in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. Excuse me, the hiccups. So with that being said, what is one thing that you know that you're just never going to do? Like whether it be with a relationship or a friendship or anything. I always say that all relationships are the same, despite the type of intimacy that there is. But you should treat your woman just like you would treat your best friend, and vice versa. But a lot of people don't see it like that. So let me rephrase my question. Actually, let me just change my question. So earlier on, you said that you're hanging on to relationships to fill the void. So with trying to fill that void, what is it that you're not receiving in your other types of relationships that you're looking for?
That's a really good question. If I could just think off the dome right now, I think my problem is I'm not being reassured that I matter or mean much. And it's funny with me because me being a recording artist specifically, always in front of people, and I'm very social too, so that adds to the problem. But a lot of people aren't honest with you. Like they'll talk about you in the most honest way to other people, and you have to hear through the grapevine. And for me, someone who didn't grow up with consistency with any relationship besides my great aunt, that's alarming for me. And it makes me think like, what do I have to do more to be assured that you actually care about me as a human being for real, you know? So I think that was my biggest issue. I forgot the original question, but I know it ties in some way.
Yeah. I can relate to that though, in a sense. Like I never had my father in my life. So when I have relationships with male figures, I tend to do more or go above and beyond for my male friends. And then I see that there's still something missing. So then I'll try to go and give more and do more, and I'm still not reaping. There's no reciprocation. And then I still feel left empty or not filling that void. And I feel like that's the same with a lot of people, but it's about pinpointing the areas of what you need so you can be able to go and actually fulfill them, or the right ways to fulfill them. And we really go about it the wrong way.
Yeah, my biggest thing, I said, my goal is, as I grow in my career, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense that therapy is not as easily accessible as going to school. I feel like in school, starting first grade, there should be a real therapist, not just a counselor you go to when you get in trouble or you need a Band-Aid. Like a therapist that's like, hey, how's your day going? How are you dealing with the stress of schoolwork or at home? Is everything fine? Boom. Because we don't have a manual for how to be human beings, but we have a manual for everything else. But as far as dealing with emotions and trauma and experiences, we have no help or guidance on that, and we're expected to just figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like sorry to cut you off, in the
the Black community, it's very taboo to go to a therapist, or it's frowned upon, or whatever the word you want to use. It's just not something that we do. And it's, and a lot of people, I know some people that don't even believe in like depression, or they don't think that it's real, mental illness is real, which is crazy. But it's, something that we basically, as Black men and Black women, have to change the narrative of. So my question is, how are you changing the narrative?
Well, one, any chance and opportunity that I get, I talk about it openly. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's with my uncles from the hood, Ray and them, or just like me when I'm on tour for this play. I'm a part of a Beat the Streets. It's an anti-bullying play. And when I'm talking with these students all across the United States, we have these topics of like mental health, and I speak out on it, and suicide and things like that. And I talk about therapy, how important it is, and how it helped me. I went for 2 months and was renewed and resolved so much within 2 months, before the pandemic happened. And I benefited so much. So I talk about that. And then two, I recently started a mental health aromatherapy business that hasn't been launched yet, but I'm providing like natural tools like incense, Palo Santo, which I really stand behind, and just different things that allowed me to get through, especially 2020, specifically mentally. And I can't wait to really release that. And I want to market it towards a younger audience, and specifically the Black community, because a lot of our people don't even realize we have natural resources that we can use that helps with our mental health and space that we're dealing with. So that's my way of doing it.
I know. I always say, even to go back to the first question I asked you and talking about the presidency, I feel that just with all of the injustice and racial stuff that's going on, it's like a huge thing about all of this is because as Black males, we're looked at as a danger, as a threat. Just society where you could do absolutely nothing, but you're still looked at that way. And I know I find times where there's an issue that happens, and I'm among other people of different races, and because I'm usually the outspoken one, I'm like, oh, I can't say nothing, because if I say something, it's gonna look negative. And it's just gonna come out differently than if you were to say something. But I find that other races aren't like, it's like they want you to say something, like they want you to be the mouthpiece because you're going to be heard, but being heard isn't as always as good as being listened to, and there's a difference. Because people hear noise.
But I was just thinking, like, what you saying, and that's so true. Like, they know that we will be heard the most. But what they also don't realize, they're doing it because they don't want to deal with the potential consequences. So we're really being used. We're being used like in every other way. Like, we're being used again, and it's crazy. It's like, dang, nobody else has to think about should I, or how should I, when should I, where should I. That's always going through our brains. Crazy.
And people really just don't get it, and it's hard for you to explain it to somebody that just don't get it. Like, like there's no one pamphlet that I have that I can give you to read that's gonna make you understand anything. So they literally have to see from experience, and I feel like the whole George Floyd's death was an eye opener for a lot of people. Like, this isn't the first time. Like, me personally, I don't celebrate like big holidays like 4th of July or New Year's. I don't go out. I remember one New Year's, I think it was 2014 or 2000, not New Year's, 4th of July, 2014, 2015. Someone's like, oh, what you gonna do? And I was like, I ain't doing nothing. They out here killing us. And I said that, like, it was a joke, but I wasn't joking at the same time. And literally that day, that 4th of July, a Black man was killed, handcuffed on his back. I forget who it was. There's so many that you can't even name. But it's like, people don't realize that when you go out, we have to worry about all these things. You got to worry about how you dress, and then not even just for you being profiled by police officers. I was having this conversation with somebody else that even though we don't realize that we do it, like society has put us in this bubble. And I don't know if you're even aware of this, is that like you'll see white people and they can go out the house looking like trash, hair not done, no nothing. But
they took a bath.
But we personally can't do that. We were taught even as kids, like, oh, I remember I couldn't even go to school with sweats on, or my mom would get on me. They're gonna be thinking I don't take care of you. And we're so worried about what the white man thinks about us. So we move differently, or we handle certain things differently. And it's actually a shame that we honestly, we're not, again, heard correctly, because we are trying to still live up to the standards of what the man has put on us.
Yeah, bro. It's me going to predominantly white schools, and I realized that, yes, I am social, and yes, I'm genuinely like a nice person, but I was putting on a lot more and didn't realize it around people who didn't look like me, because I wanted to make sure they didn't feel uncomfortable. And when I was realizing that, I was like, wow, like even the idea that I always had to smile too, like that was a thing. I was like, I'm surprised my cheeks ain't fall off or nothing, because I smiled all the time. It was like, oh, Confidence. Back then, my name was Confidence instead of Confidence. It's like, oh, Confidence, oh, you're such a nice guy. Oh my gosh, you're always smiling. Oh, you're so different. You're so different from the. I'm like, different from what? Well, from the others. And I used to think that was a compliment. And then I would think about it like, that's messed up. Like, I even had a guy, oh my gosh, senior year, we were like having our goodbyes, and I was the only black in the school. It was actually choir. And he was like, you know what, Confidence, you're my first black friend I ever had. And I never thought I could say that. And I was like, and everybody's laughing, and I'm in that moment laughing. And I'm thinking like afterwards, why were you laughing? That was an educational moment that you could have like, but I didn't have the tools back then that I do now to be like, that's a problem. And it's just sad. Like I literally played that token black guy and didn't realize, and I was switching real good when I around my black friends or family, it would go right back to normal. But it's like, it's crazy I had to do that.
Yeah, it is sad. I know there's so I have some cousins. My aunt is black and their dad's like Hispanic and Hawaiian, but he grew up pretty much white in a sense. So the area that they lived in was all white, and my cousins don't look like they have any black in them. And with all this stuff going on, like I see that they're so out of touch. Like they don't get it. Like even though all of the family that they hang around with is black, dark skin, one of them told me that they feel strange hanging around black people, and I'm like, huh? I'm just like, and then I find out that your mom is getting her degree in like African studies, and I'm like, she has failed you not as a parent, but as a black parent.
Yeah.
And it's sad. Like you're already an adult. You're 26 or 20. I don't know how old he is, and I'm just like, I don't even know how to teach you to like be black. It's just something that you are, and you're not.
Well, maybe the reason why the mom is taking classes on that in school, because that's the insecurity that she's trying to fill in, like to feel better about her blackness. Because if you were really passionate about making sure that you knew your history, why would you not pass that down to your children? It seemed like it's a cover-up. That's more of a cover-up more than anything.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you true. I should get her on this podcast. Probably won't be family no more, but
yeah, come on in.
But no, it's so true. And just with Black History Month, I feel like there's so many things, and I thank TikTok for this. I don't know if you have a TikTok or not.
Yeah,
but
I'm on the TikTok.
I don't post anything, but I look at videos, and it's so crazy because I've talked to other people, and I'm like, oh, like when you swipe, what do you mostly see on your TikTok? And people like say like, oh, this is what I mostly see. In my personal TikTok, I usually only see things about like that's educating Black people or educating white people on Black things, which is cool.
Yeah,
it's just really cool. I feel like that platform, probably people, whoever made it, didn't make it for it to be used that way, but it's really important and a good showing. Like what I learned the other day that I didn't know off of TikTok is the word cracker. So we use it as saying white people, but the word crackers actually didn't come from that. Cracker is a term to use for the slave owners or the person that whipped the slaves. because they were
I
cracking the
did
whip.
learn that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did learn that.
So technically it has nothing to do with the color of somebody's skin or their race. It's whoever is actually was whipping them. And sometimes it was also other slaves.
Yeah.
So that's where the term comes from. So when people go out and use it, they are not even really, they're not using it correctly, and they don't even know they're not.
They're not. Yeah. Dang, man. I forgot about that. It's funny too, because now you have these certain supporters. We ain't gonna give them too much attention, but they try to use that try to flip and be like, well, you called us this, that's right, and it's like, well, it's not racist, and this is why, because that term has it doesn't have a history that the N-word has behind it. You know what I'm saying? The reason why the N-word is a problem, because there's a long list of history that is super negative that is attached to it. The word cracker is fairly new. And back then, like you said, it was used in a different way, which was a response to your actions. And now, you know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta be mindful of that. Like, we in this era where people like to flip stuff like, well, that's a fact, or I'm gonna make my own fact. And they make it make sense. And you be like, dang, they could have a point. And it's like, nah. Like, sit down.
I know when I was talking to, like I was saying earlier with the kid that I mentor, he just, again, wasn't getting it. And he was like, why use these other terms? And like his rant that he was saying, I don't know what his point he was trying to make. I really don't know what the point he was trying to make. But then people started messaging him that didn't even follow him and was like, white people was like, thank you, like, for posting this. Yes. And the comment was, us white people need to stay together. And my friend's like, I'm not white, I'm Hispanic. And he's all like, no, you're white. He's all like, my people came down over here and raped all of your people. That's why you're so light. So, and I'm like, well, the white person do got a point. Like, and it's so sad.
Man.
Like, and I always tell people, I'm like, if you're not part of the solution, that means you're part of the problem. If you're not saying anything at all, you're part of the problem. Like, you have to, it's not okay anymore to just stand by the sidelines, even if you don't agree with what people are doing, to just stand by. You actually have to say something. You have to be vocal.
Yep. And I feel like it's most important to be vocal when you're with people face to face, when you're seeing people, especially as a person who wants to be an ally that is not of color. You need to speak out and be like, hey, that's wrong, and this is why. And even if you don't have all the tools or the education behind it, just saying that's wrong helps. You know what I'm saying? And people just scared, and I get it. And, but shout out to the people who are trying. I do see people on TikTok too, and people speaking out to their mamas and dads and, recording it. And I'm like, all right, now I see you.
Like, a lot of people like to say, well, that's none of my business. But
It is, though.
Exactly. It definitely is your business. If something happens in front of you that is wrong, that person or those people made it your business because they did it in front of you. And it just makes me, I remember I was in Walmart, and this isn't even a racial thing, but this guy was getting belittled by his boss. And like everything inside of me wanted to say something and check her, because like, you're not going to disrespect him in front of me. Like, but I didn't say anything. And then after I left the store, I'm like, that was a freaking perfect opportunity, because he wasn't going to say anything, and he, and I'm just like, and I missed that opportunity, and I felt so bad about it, but there's nothing I can do. At the time has passed. So to get into my next subject, because it's about saying stuff when the time has passed, I know that, to go back to the album and the relationships, I know a lot of times people, well, for me, this is a thing for me. If I've done something to you and it may have hurt you, and I didn't realize that it hurt you, and you don't say anything, to me, that means you're okay with it. You may not be okay with it, but that means you're okay with it. So when you do something and I speak up because I don't like it, you're not allowed at this time to say anything about something I did 3 months ago. Because if you had a real big problem with it, you should have said it then. What are your thoughts on that?
The first thing I think about, and this is no offense to nobody, but shout out to my lovely Cancers. I was raised by a Cancer, strong, beautiful woman. And that seems to be a trait that they have, or not all, of course, but I agree. My whole thing is communication. If you do not communicate and tell people how you want to be treated, how are they supposed to know? I think it's a part of our responsibility to relay information. And yes, sometimes it's very hard to do that. It's uncomfortable, but we have to learn that. And I think like that's what we need to be raising our children to do more of. You know, I've been I don't have kids yet, but my niece, you know, I'm really close to my niece, and I've been raising her to be that way. But now I'm trying to dial it back because she too outspoken at times. You know, she talk a little too much. You know, but I think that is a trait that we all need to learn to have. You know, regardless of what your nature is, like that's important. You know,
and that's how you set up boundaries. I was saying before in one of my podcasts that there's a 4-step rule. And if people don't follow this, if something happens to you, you do something, you're supposed to let them know, like, hey, this bothers me in a neutral tone. Yep. Then if they do it again, you let them know again, hey, like I told you before that this bothered me, but you're doing it again. So now I'm going to request to you that you're not doing it again, and I'm not going to tolerate that no more.
Yep.
Then
and also it's like, yeah, there you go. You get into it.
Yeah, then they may do it again. So now at this point, you're going to be like, hey, I told you, don't do it again. If you do it one more time, then, like all bets are off kind of thing. And then at that time, if they do it the fourth time, or 3 times and you're out kind of thing, 4th time, you're just like, you don't got to say nothing to them. You just got to, ice them out, because at this point, they already know what they did. You don't have to explain it to them.
And the thing is, too, if you saying, like, if you continue to do this, I'm going to do this, you have to literally stand up behind that and actually do it. Because if not, then they're like, oh, you're not really serious. You just talking. And that's why a lot of guys say that, too, with women. Like, like women like, oh, I'm tired of you. I'm going to leave you for doing this or doing that. The reason why in any situation someone continues to treat you wrong is because you've allowed them to do it and they have faced no consequences. People can deal with some screaming, some yelling, you bleaching some clothes or doing some crazy stuff and get past it. That's temporary. You know what I'm saying? But there's no real consequences behind it, because then now, look, y'all back together, y'all up on each other again. And, so it is a training in a way. Like, you got to train a pet, train a child. You got to train. Yeah, you got to do that in relationships, man.
That's basically what I tell, because I'm a life coach. I do relationships. I'm like, you got the dog whisperer. I'm the relationship whisperer. But no, it's really, really true, though. Like, I feel like people, sometimes people are not toxic until they get into the relationship, and then their toxic traits that they already possess but haven't come out start to come out.
Mm-hmm. But you know what, though? I honestly think that you normally can see all of their toxic traits early. I think the problem is that, like I was mentioning in my first song, Red Flags on the Project, we ignore them, or we get this little like instinct like, that's a little strange. And we just keep it moving, whether it's because we think they fine as hell, whether it's because they got all these things that I like on my checklist, or whether because I'm just desperate and I don't want to be by myself. But a lot of times I feel like you'll notice that everything ties to that red flag or red flags that you ignored early on. So then my question is, can we really get mad and tell somebody not to do something that we saw potentially happening early on? Like, they showed you who they were.
Exactly. That's what I tell people too. I'm like, well, you can't really get mad at him because you knew that this is who he was when you became a part of it, or this is who she was when you became a part of it. So you already knew that this is that person. So why are you getting mad? Like, not that you can't be mad, but you can't say nothing.
You can't say nothing. Sit there and shut your mouth.
To leeway, let's play Red Flags right now.
I'm beginning to believe my lies, like I don't know what I came for. I'm just really here passing time. But it's like I'm stuck on a ride, and the thrill faded by the 3rd try. Should've never been a you and I. I'm choosing to stay cause I know you can be beneficial. Too many chances to go, should've been left you alone, alone. I'm getting too comfortable, and I'm conflicted on the low. And I stick around knowing it's no love, no love.
Okay, that's that song. I feel like the most important lyric on your project is the first line of this
Mm,
song. I begin to believe
wow.
my lies. I'm beginning to believe my
Mm,
lies. And I feel that sometimes we ignore certain things and
yeah,
then they become truths to us, the things that we ignore.
yeah,
And it's really hard to like learn those or unbelieve those things. Like and you then turn into a certain person and then now you believe that you're the person because you've been in this relationship so long and you forget you lose touch with yourself. So my
yeah.
question is, have you lost touch of yourself in any of your relationships?
I almost did. Actually, the one that this project is mainly about. Shout out to her. I nah. You know what's funny too. It's funny before I get to that the question. I actually played this for her before it was released, the whole thing, and I was like, "This is kind of petty though." I'm like, "So what you think?" And she was like, "Cool." Couldn't say nothing, bro. I was like, "Yo," and I thought about it later, like that was kind of messed up, bro. Like she knows about her ass. Um, but dang, what was the original question? My bad.
I had to
Have
say
you
it.
ever lost touch of yourself?
Yeah, I almost did. When I realized that I was getting to the point where I was getting super angry and just filled with like resentment to the point where I was lashing out verbally in ways that I have never done in my life. I was like, oh, I've adapted this version of myself. Like, oh, I gotta be this guy now in this relationship to make it last. Oh, you like being put in place? You like when I talk to you in a toxic way? That's what keeps you coming like chilling out? Okay, I'm gonna be that guy. And I was like, wait, that is not good. Like, yo, you gotta really stop. And it was one incident that happened that really changed the entire dynamic. It was like the icing on the cake. I was like, you know what? I see myself going in a direction I don't want to go in. Let me leave. And so what happened first, I should have did it the opposite way. Internally, I left, but I was still there, which is why that second verse talks about like, you can see in my eye, like there's no love. I changed myself and I was just like, nope. Whenever we went out, we went on dates and everything. And I was just playing the funk, like just going, playing my role. I should have left. And if I decided to gave a reason, but she already knew the reason and ended it. But I stayed in it for a good like 3-4 months, like numb to her. And then I decided to leave. But I made her in the relationship instead of me doing it, which was so messed up. I'll never do that again because I go into potential. I hate endings. I hate ending something because it reflects my past and like nothing lasts as good. Wow. And it's not true. That's just life. It changes all the time. So yeah, that's why I did it. I made her in the relationship because I was so distant.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. So my question is, so what are you doing now? Like you're not in a relationship. And so that means that
Mm,
void that you normally would try to fill with the relationship. How are you filling that void now? Or what are you doing to be able to fill that void?
Well, I am like casually dating and trying to apply what I learned about myself in that way, but I'm not really taking nothing serious. I'm really just focusing on everything that makes me happy, which is my music, my new business titled Beyond Me, and also learning myself more. Like I said before I get to another serious relationship, I'm definitely getting some therapy ASAP. Like and just yeah, I'm just really just focusing on things that make me happy. And I'm also calling myself out when I know I'm doing too much to distract myself from what I'm really feeling. Cause I'm very guilty of that. Like if I'm doing too much all at once and I'm constantly moving and not sitting down and like watching something on Netflix or doing whatever, it's like, oh, you're dealing with something and you don't want to face it. What is it? Let's chill. Let's figure this out.
How
sit
do you
in the
balance
moment.
all that with your career and your new business plus finding time for, like you said, yourself and to chill out?
Um having a damn a calendar, a schedule, and literally saying by 5 p.m. every day, I am no longer doing this and this and that. Like, and it's kind of weird to do that with your life, but literally, I have to do that for my life, and it changes every day. That's what makes me happy. I can't have the same routine every day. That would drive me nuts. Like people who wake up, brush their teeth, go to work, go to the gym, then come home, make dinner, then watch their favorite show, go to sleep. I can't do that. It has to switch up for me.
Yeah. Have you heard of the performance? I don't want to get the name of the damn book wrong. The High Performance Planner. So
Nah.
it's on Amazon. This is a shameless plug, and I'm not getting any money for this. I probably shouldn't even say this, but the High Performance, right? High Performance Planner. So basically, what it is, it's a planner that you can't even see it, can you? No, because
I can see a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so anyways, it's the only downfall about the planner is that it's huge as hell, but it's only for 1 month, and you can buy them in a set. So like right now they're on sale for Amazon, I think for like $50 for a whole year set. And it basically, when you write out your day, like you can do it the month, week, and then it has the day parts, and every morning it basically sets your mindset up so you can have a successful day in a sense. So like some of the questions on there is, one thing that I can get excited about today is, if one word could describe the kind of person I want to be today, what would it be? Someone that someone that needs me on the A game. And then it just has a list of questions. And then at the evening, you're going to fill it out too, to basically, this says, a moment that I really appreciated today was, a situation or task I could have handled better was, and it just basically analyzes your day. And because I feel like sometimes we go day to day and we don't really think about, what happened or until like weeks later. So this planner, I think they're like $20 a piece, or you can buy like a set, like a whole year worth for $50. So why not?
That's awesome.
And it really just breaks everything down for you, and it just makes you analyze your life and makes you see things differently, about like, oh man, I could have handled this, or and it just has the days where you can actually plan everything out. Because for me, it's helpful because I do so many different things. So I'm like, okay, if I've structured this out, then I know that this is the time that I have for this. And it's, some people be like, well, just make time. It's not always that easy just to make time, because I'm doing other stuff, or it'd be the one thing that I just won't do anything.
Yeah. Which is cool though. You gotta have those days where you do nothing. You have to, especially people like us that's constantly busy, like, and you're really like driven and have a lot of like goals in mind. You have to, and for me that's hard. I start moving and like feeling weird if I'm literally sitting down not doing nothing. I was like, bro, what is wrong? It's okay to chill and eat that damn Snickers bar and watch this show, or just like do nothing, like, but we have to retrain ourselves, because that's another thing about millennials too. We have all these memes and stuff, and everybody telling us if you sleep, I don't know what the slogan is. Like, if people who are successful don't sleep, and if you wanted this, it's like that's not even healthy at all.
Freaking TikTok that do one video, go viral, and now they're making a grip of money. But I could never do that, because I tried to do one TikTok and I'm like, oh, either I'm too old for this app, or like you got to put
on TikTok.
They got like, people put so much time and energy into TikTok, and I'm just like, who has time to like, who has the time just to make one video? Some people take like 2 hours, and I'm like, that's crazy. But it goes to show you, when you want something bad enough, that you're gonna go out and get it, no matter what it is. And sometimes you really just have to plan for it. So with that being said, the whole podcast is create your own story. One question is, how did you know that this is the story that you wanted to create? Were you being a singer, and like, when did you find this out? When did you know that this is the route I'm going in, and I'm gonna give it my all? And how did you know?
Well, honestly, my mom told me this from the few conversations we've had. There's nothing against her, but when I was in her stomach, she used to play music all the time, and she said that she would literally be driving, and I would literally dance or kick on beat to whatever's playing on the radio. So it started there. Then being a toddler, and I had my first little crush in like preschool. This girl named Deborah. Shout out to Deborah. And I sung the Luther Vandross song to her.
The song was
it was any day now No,
No,
it's
it's
Don't You
Don't You
Remember.
Remember.
My
My
favorite Luther
favorite Luther
Vandross
Vandross
song.
song.
And no,
And
none
no,
of the
none of the
kids.
kids.
Actually, no, it
Actually,
was
no, it was
five. Yeah, it
five.
was
Yeah, it was
five.
five.
Just turning
Just turning
five.
five.
None of the
None of the
kids knew what
kids
I
knew
was
what I was
singing.
singing.
And I
And I
remember
remember in that moment
watching
watching
her
her
look like,
look
"What
like,
are you
"What are you
singing?" But I
singing?" But I
like
like
this.
this.
And
And
everybody
everybody
around me,
around me,
like
like,
just
just
like
like
still and
still and
watching me.
watching me.
In that
In that
moment, I was
moment, I
like,
was like,
"Wow, I
wow, I
had
had
everybody's
everybody's
attention."
attention.
And
And
instantly, I
instantly
was
I
like,
was like,
"Man, I
man,
could
I
do a
could do a
lot with
lot
that."
with that.
Like I
Like I
remember at
remember at
5 really
five really
thinking like
thinking like
I could
I
do
could do
so
so
much with
much with
people
people
being able
being
to
able to
sit
sit
still
still
and
and
focus on
focus on
me.
me.
And as I
And as I
gotten
gotten
older and
older and
started doing
started
more
doing more
shows, and
shows, and
even when
even
I'm
when
just
I'm just
speaking and it's
speaking and
not
it's not
necessarily
necessarily
singing,
singing,
I
I
realized that
realize that
I
I
have
have
something that I
something
feel
that I
like
feel like
God gave
God
me
gave
to
me to
where
where
when I
when I
open my
open my
mouth,
mouth,
people want
people
to
want to
hear
hear
what I
what
have
I
to
have to
say.
say.
And
And
singing and
singing and
music is
music is
only the
only the
door that's
door
going
that's
to
gonna
open a
open a
lot more
lot
for
more
me.
for me.
And I feel
And I
like
feel like
I'll be
I'll
able
be
to
able to
literally have
literally
an
have an
impact.
impact.
Not
Not
change the
change the
world, because
world,
that's
because that's
impossible. I used
impossible.
to
I used
have
to
that
have that
mindset, and I
mindset, and
think
I
that's
think that's
toxic for
toxic for
anybody.
anybody.
But I
But I
really do
really
think
do
I
think
would
I
be able
will
to
be able to
shift
shift
mindsets
mindsets
in a
in a
positive
positive
way,
way,
whether
whether
it's
it's through
through music,
music,
whether
whether
it's
it's
speaking on
speaking
an
on an
interview
interview
like right
like right
now,
now,
or
or
putting out a
putting out a
brand like
brand like
Beyond
Beyond
Me and
Me and
helping people
helping
with their
people with their
mental health.
mental
Like
health. Like
that is
that
my
is my
mission.
mission.
And I
And I
knew that
knew
this
that
is
this is
something I'm
something I'm
supposed to
supposed
do
to do
because
because
God kept
God kept
reconfirming that
reconfirming
this
that
is
this
what
is
you
what
need
you
to
need
do
to do
based off
based
of
off of
people's
people's
response to
response
what I
to
was
what I
doing.
was doing.
That makes sense. I know, like with this podcast, like, so never wanted a podcast. I wanted originally I wanted, like, I want to say 2009. I was like, I knew I'm gonna be on TV. I'm gonna have a TV show.
Mm,
And I was like, how am I gonna get this TV show? And I record a whole bunch of videos. I never posted anything though. So before I can
mm.
post them, I was one video that my cousin was in, and he thought that he was gonna get in trouble, and I would have never posted that because I would have got in trouble for it. He erased all of my footage.
Oh no.
And I was just like defeated. So I was like, okay, what else I'm gonna do? So then I was like, okay, I had this gig to be on the Real World. And it was like one
Oh,
of
lit.
the later seasons. And I'm like, I know, because, I'm going to act up so I can get noticed. And then I'm going to be able to use this. And I didn't go to the thing because I remember I used to go to one church in LA, and Niecy Nash was on there, and she had made a point that, like, people are trying to be something that they're not, in a sense. And that's how they get famous.
Mm,
But now they have to keep up with that reputation. And is that who you really want to be? And I
bro.
literally sat there and I'm like, that's not who I want to be. Like, so I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to do it. So I end up thinking, like, what do I really want to do? And I really didn't know. The one thing that I did know is that I love music, and that I loved helping people.
Mm,
So I was able to, for some odd reason, always like being able to talk to artists such as yourself, and just find a way, and I love helping up and coming artists. Like I used to work with K Michelle before she's like the K Michelle, now. And
yeah.
I've worked with people from, I don't know if you know Sophia Fresh, that was signed to T-Pain.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and like one of the Sophia Fresh Sky from Sophia Fresh is one of my best friends, and there's like Tamel that just dropped a project, and like there's all these artists that I've
Mm.
like was able to work with, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be in the music industry. I'm just gonna work behind the scenes of the music industry, and then I'm like,
Mm.
now my personality's too dope. Like I look too fly. I'm too dope to be behind the scenes. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not what happen. That's not what's gonna happen for me. And I still really didn't know. And then 2 years ago, no, like 3 years ago, whatever, 21. So 4 years ago, I was like, I really like helping people. So I'm going to go to school to be a life coach, because being a therapist is
Mm.
too much school and ain't nobody got time for that. So I
Yeah.
did the whole life coach thing, and it still just wasn't, like I was fulfilled, but I
Mm.
wasn't fully fulfilled. And I'm like, well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how am I going to be able to do this? And then even this past year, I was on a podcast almost a year ago today. Um, and I like really enjoyed it. And I'm like, but I didn't think that it would be something that I could do. Like, I didn't think it
Mm.
would be possible for me to do something like that.
Wow.
And then people kept speaking it over my life, like, oh, you'd be good at a podcast, you'd be dope. And I'm like, nah, I don't have, the capability of doing that. It's just gonna be too much money. It's gonna be too much. And like literally when I finally said, okay, I'm gonna do it,
Yeah.
everything fell into place. I didn't have to pay for anything. Like I got a free
Bro.
mic, a good mic, like literally, like it was my destiny. Like I just had to believe in it.
That's how it works, man.
Exactly. And that's why the whole thing is about creating your own story and
Yeah.
putting out who you want to be. And just like you were saying earlier, like, is God going to be pleased with what I'm putting out, and God's going to do, so there's, if people that are listening to this, they'll see other parts of different podcasts where I'm like, okay, I like to shoot the shit with my friends and talk about stuff that's going on in society, or even just social media and just with artists.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're just talking shit, for lack of a better words. And then we're not really thinking, like, what is this person really going through? Like, we're laughing at them, but like, it's really not a laughing matter.
That's true.
Which is why the podcast was called The Rundown, because I'm just running down the news and just telling you my opinion on what people are going through. Like, even with the Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez thing, like, I made a tasteless joke. It was tasteless. It was funny, but it was tasteless. I made the comment. I was like, well, like, how did he shoot her in the ankle? Was she galloping away? To play on the words of a stallion. Very tasteless. Very tasteless, but it was funny, like, but and I'm thinking that's gonna win, and then I'm just like, nah, like, that's not who I want to be as a person.
Yeah, it's crazy because every choice that we make as people who are in the forefront, it is a responsibility, and that's why I kind of get frustrated when you see certain celebrities or people who are just like, popular say, I didn't ask to be a role model. I didn't ask to, I'm not trying to be that. And I'm like, yeah, that is a thing that the public needs to realize. Everybody's not meant to be a role model. However, the person that unfortunately has this influence, you just have to be a little bit more careful. And the way that you go about your influence and how you present yourself doesn't have to be the way that the next person is doing it. It just has to be true to you. And you also have to apply a filter always and understand, am I proud of this, or will I be proud of this 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Is there another outside purpose outside of what is being presented now? Like, even for me, like, I struggled transitioning, being part of church and all of that stuff to now singing R&B. And I've always sung R&B even in church, but fully transitioning to an R&B artist. And I was, close with like my pastor and deacons. And I recently had a conversation with my pastor, and it was so comforting because he's always been supportive. And he would even say it in front of the congregation, like, we are so proud of our brother for allowing God to use him in a way that is untraditional. And I think that is important. We cannot judge people based off of how God is using them, because we don't know. Even if they're a hot mess, maybe God needs them to be a hot mess to show somebody what they shouldn't be doing. So you got to chill. We got to chill on that. We got to realize there are different ways to go about God's plan. And you just got to be mindful of that, attentive to what God is telling you and showing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's this song by I'm drawing up the Clark sisters on their last project that's called Minister to Broken Ministry. I don't know what the song's called. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna hold you. I want people to listen to it though, but let me just get the right name. I listen to it all the time. You'd think that I would know the name of the song. Okay, let me see. It's Broken to Minister. Okay, I was close. And it basically talks about, like, sometimes, like, in a sense, like, we're not in past in a sense, but more so that, like, sometimes the stuff that you're going through in your life, it's not for you. You're going through it so somebody else can learn from it. And I feel like sometimes we get onto the why me card, and that's specifically why I asked you what would be the one question that you would ask God, because sometimes we always get on the why is me, but we have to have the mindset is why not me? Like, what makes me so special that I'm not gonna go that I shouldn't go through this?
Yeah, that's very true. I always say, like, if an athlete has to go through, crucial training, especially to be in the Olympics, I look at it like that. You're going to fall, you're going to break something, or hopefully not, but you're going to get bruised and you're going to go through a lot. But it'll be worth it once you get that gold medal. And we all want the gold medal, whatever that is, and it requires us to go through a lot to get it. It's just not a hop and a skip and a jump, and we got to just constantly remind ourselves that.
So true. So you have a new single out, came out February 12th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct.
Give us some info on that.
Yeah, Proud of You. Spelled Pradau, but I'm basically saying proud of you. And Black folks, we say things a little different, Prada. But I'm really excited about this one. It's basically me being in a situation where I'm not necessarily in a relationship, but It is a start of one, and it's based off of her leaving a toxic one. And I'm telling her, like, I am proud of you for choosing yourself first, because in a confident way, I'm basically saying over here is healthy. And you know it. The energy is right. I'm constantly feeding into you. And now you've allowed yourself to receive that. And I'm proud of you, you know? And I just think it's going to speak to a lot of people. It's a very vibey, kind of like trap soul-ish R&B trap, trap song that I'm really happy about.
Okay, perfect. And then when can we expect another project from you?
Man, I am working on that. Hopefully, I'll say June-ish. It all depends on how the singles go. But this year I'm focusing on just really pushing the music as much as possible, getting that energy out there. So yeah, I'm really excited for this new year. I got a lot of stuff coming up, and God has already been showing out. Literally, we not even like we halfway through the month, so I know I got some work to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I will say that how are you? I don't like this question. So let me rephrase it. So the question I was going to ask is what makes you different than anybody else? But you're different than everybody else because nobody else is like you. That's obvious.
Yeah,
So what is one thing that will gravitate people to your music?
I feel like
the
the
first
first
thing
thing
would
would be
be
the
the
honesty,
honesty,
especially
especially
coming
coming
from a
from a
black
black
male
male
in
in
R&B.
R&B.
I like to
I like to
talk
talk
about
about
subjects
subjects
that
that
either
either
haven't been
haven't been
talked
talked
about
about
before
before
or
or
do it in a
do it in a
different
different
way
way
that hasn't
that
been
hasn't been
heard.
heard.
Uh,
Uh,
and then
and
two,
then two,
my
my
attention to
attention to
details.
details.
I've
I've
learned
learned
that,
that,
well,
well,
I'm a big
I'm a
fan
big
of
fan of
psychology, and
psychology, and
music is
music is
nothing but
nothing but
science,
science,
really.
really.
And
And
there are
there are
ways to
ways to
grab
grab
people's
people's
attention
attention
and have
have
someone
someone
really
really
gain an
gain an
experience that is
experience that is
positive
positive
from it
from it
without them
without them
realizing it,
realizing it,
whether it is
whether it is
certain
certain
background
background
vocals or
vocals or
stacks,
stacks,
or
or
whether it's
whether
like
it's like
something in the
something in the
production
production
that is a
that is a
sound
sound
selection that
selection
is
that is
cool and
cool and
interesting that
interesting that
fills in
fills
this
in this
space that's
space that's
empty.
empty.
Like,
Like,
I like
I
to
like to
really
really
think
think
about
about
every
every
aspect of
aspect
the
of the
song.
song.
It's
It's
not
not
just
just lyrics
lyrics
or
or
just
just melody,
melody,
it's
it's
everything.
everything.
And I
And I
really
really
like
like
some
some
songs
songs
literally
literally
have
have
7 versions or
versions or
10
10
versions of
versions
it.
of it.
And I think
And I
when
think
people
when people
listen to
listen
my
to my
music,
music,
they'll
they'll
understand
understand
me,
me,
but
but
also
also
pay
pay
attention and
attention and
see like,
see like,
wow, he
wow, he
really took
really
his
took his
time with
time
that.
with that.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I enjoyed about the Red Flags project is that the songs are all related. I feel like most albums don't do that. Like the last album that I can think of that was like that was the Destiny Fulfilled album, where like each song like
Uh,
tangled into another song.
hmm
So it was kind of like a book in a sense. And I felt like your project was
Yeah.
kind of like that. Like it tells a story about this particular relationship, even if it is several relationships. It's something
hmm
that's so relatable. And I know R. Kelly always used to say, if he didn't say this, and I apologize, but R. Kelly always used to say, if you write your soul, then your heart, then you're always going to be in business. You're always going to have a job in a sense, because that's just
Absolutely.
your calling. But one thing that I
Absolutely.
didn't touch on that I wanted to before I let you go, and I feel like it's a huge thing with Black people, is dating outside of your race.
Ooh. Look, you know what? Honestly, I'm all for it, man. I think it's silly to have limitations on what is meant for you. Like, I just think that if you're going to date outside your race, make sure you doing all that you can to understand that other person's background. And I understand you won't know everything, but be sensitive, be open-minded, and just truly be yourself. Unfortunately, I have heard stories and actually know family members who have dated outside their race and actually are married. And I'm looking at them and they are not themselves around them. And that is like scary as hell to me. So I just say, just be yourself. Be okay with being yourself. And, just really, really try to be sensitive to what it is that your differences are. That's it.
I totally agree. I personally, um, I don't have a problem with dating outside of my race. I don't think that I would personally date anybody that's white for two reasons. One, I'm
Hmm.
just really not just attracted to white people, except
Hey,
for
that's
Candace
fair.
Kennel. Shout out to Candace Kennel. wherever she's at in this world. How I went to high school with. But the other reason is just for the simple fact with everything that we experience, I feel that sometimes you'll never fully understand what I'm going through. Yeah. And because of that, I feel like it would be too hard. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, but for me, I feel that it is just going to be a disconnect. I know for all I know, I might marry a white girl, but.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just gonna say that it's, a lot of times we say, "Oh, I ain't gonna never have kids. I ain't gonna never date this person and do that," and then you be like 5 years later, 10 years later, like, "Oh, remember what you said?" It's like, yeah, you're right. So, but I know that is a big concern. I do understand that. I fortunately do have great examples of interracial couples in my life. Even one being my manager. Shout out to Sammy and Meredith. Like, I see that, they actually constantly are having open discussions about what is going on and how they feel about it. And they're constantly educating themselves. And I think that is just important. Like, you have to be humble and you have to know who you're with, and especially in an interracial relationship, you got to ask those tough questions straight from the bat. Like, I'm not even spending $50 on your meal on the first date until we have this conversation first, and then we'll figure that out.
But speaking of that, I'm gonna let you go soon. But speaking of that, spending $50, do you believe that it's okay for the woman to pay?
Honestly, that's kind of fire to me. I don't know. My thing is, I'm attracted to strong women. Like, and I know that's kind of cliche now. People men like to say that to kind of get that woman audience or like fan base. Like, no, literally, I've always been attracted to a woman that knows what she wants and is okay with taking on certain roles or certain things. Because to me, what that shows me is that you are not depending on anything. You are solely an independent person and you want someone who's only going to be a match and elevate you. And to me, that shows a sign of that. That would make me trust you a little bit more. Now, of course, I'm not going to allow you to keep always paying, but you offering and then you actually doing it and not just like doing a fake like, oh, I got it. Because I saw some memes where I'm calling the ladies out. Y'all be doing that on purpose and y'all have no intention on paying and don't have no money. Like, don't do that. Because I'm going to be like, all right. You're going to pay for the wings. Yeah, pay for the wings real quick. Mm-hmm.
Well, I do appreciate you doing this podcast with me and just really being able to tell your own story in your own words. Where can people find you and your music? And yeah, you
can find me on all social media platforms at Con Killion. Con is C-O-N. Killion is K-I-L-L-I-O-N. It's like million, but with a K. And on YouTube and everything, man, just look me up. And I appreciate you if you check out the music, the new music, the old music, and follow this journey. I got a lot in store.
Yeah, I will say, people, his music is amazing. But not only that, I will say that if you're in any type of business, please brand yourself on social media. That is actually how I found you. I was swiping on the stories on Instagram. And I seen the part for Red Flags, and I'm like, oh, this actually sounds good. Because usually some of the people that do stuff on the music's kind of whack. I'm not even gonna lie, but I said, oh, this actually sounds good. So I was like, okay, let me go back and go listen, go to the whole project and listen to it. And I'm like, oh, the whole project is good. So I will say that for people who are, no matter what you're doing, please market yourself on social media because it is effective.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even know that. I appreciate that, bro. And I appreciate you even shouting me out. And I think it was one of the earlier episodes. And I had no idea. That is the best compliment because I don't know. It just reconfirms for me that I'm doing something right and that I should just keep doing it. Because as artists, we do doubt ourselves at times. We kind of question and we wonder if we should be going a different direction. But that really meant a lot. And what you're doing is really powerful, bro. And you just got to keep doing it, keep pushing. And you're going to really, like I told you before, you're going to definitely change some lives for sure and inspire people.
I appreciate that. We're definitely going to have you on again. once the project
Yeah,
comes
man.
out.
Next project come out.
And
Yes,
then I
sir.
have a playlist that's out now, y'all. Two. One's 2020 was my favorite 20 songs of 2020.
Fires.
And I did actually a podcast on that. You guys can listen to that now. And Con has the number 16th song or 17th song on the playlist of 2020
Sir,
with Red Flags.
yeah.
And then I have a new playlist out now. It's called Terrell Garnett Presents the Men's Edition. And there's about 3 songs of Cons on there, so please check that out.
Whoa.
And yeah, there's 40 songs of some of the best songs that's come out within the last year or so from artists such as Avant, Jagged Edge. Who else is on there? Ro James, Samo. Yeah, it's just some really good artists, and I feel that my key thing is that I still wanted to be able to promote artists in a way that was true to me, and that was able to be able to help people tell their own story and not have the media tell it for them. So yeah, again, I thank you.
Keep it up, bro. Yeah, I appreciate you, man, and I wish you an amazing 2021, bro.
And that's all we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed yourself on this episode of Create Your Own Story with Terrell Garnett. We'll catch you next time.